Redditors who gave up pursuing their dream to settle for a more secure or comfortable life. How did it turn out, and do you regret your decision? My dream was to become a translator for Nintendo, specifically the Zelda franchise. Studied Japanese and lived there for a year, then became a video game translator at a small studio. Afterwards a localization project manager at a bigger Korean company. Worked my way up to maybe one day be hired by Nintendo. Lost more and more passion for games on the way. Heard awful stories about working at Nintendo and slowly realized that this isn't the right job for me after all. Translators are, most of the time, underpaid and the whole thing isn't as romantic as it seems. Decided to do something entirely else. Left the gaming and localization industry, and I'm now a really happy and well paid product manager for an e-commerce company. I will never go back. Knowing Japanese, well, the bit that is left after not using it for years, is a good party trick still, so no regrets. Was a fun time, but it had to end. I went to school and worked as a video game developer. I saw the crunch times, the frequent layoffs, and general instability of the industry, and decided it wasn't for me after all. Been doing work in various industries trying to find something I want to do for a living. Came to the conclusion that I will never like working. So I'm settled in at an aerospace manufacturing plant that has been in operation since WWII, and I can, and probably will spend the rest of my working days here. I've decided that it's better for me to get my life's fulfillment from my hobbies and relationships instead of my work. A little bit. I bounced around the lower levels of the film industry, earning nothing, earning $5 a day, earning $8.20 an hour. I really enjoyed most jobs, got some great stories. But after 10+ years of missed opportunities, missing out on jobs to those more connected, of not having enough to do, I could blame the early days of digital, but I just didn't go hard enough. It was time. My 30s were approaching. I had less than 5 figures in the bank despite still living at home and having next to no expenses. My romantic life consisted of admiring the actresses from afar and being an ass to anyone who got close. I switched to teaching, and I mostly enjoy the work. I still tap into my skills occasionally. I make movies with my classes. Last year made a whole bunch during remote teaching. I actually had the self-esteem and cash to start dating, and am now engaged to a girl I don't deserve and have been trying to marry for months. I don't regret it, but I do miss it. When I was in college, I wasn't the most enthusiastic student. I barely hung on to my grades and spent most of my time partying. I mostly hang out with a buddy of mine who played drums for a thrash punk band that was on the cusp of being something. He taught me how to play, and I was surprisingly good at the drums. One day, my buddy broke his arm and the band asked me to sub in for him. I played like 5 shows with them and had a hell of a time doing it. While he was recovering, my buddy wound up moving out of state, and the band asked if I wanted to replace him permanently. I think about that moment a lot, but wound up changing my major and getting through college. I now work in it for a large company and think it worked out for the best. In hindsight, the music was pretty much unlistenable and the band went nowhere, but there are definitely days when I'm overwhelmed at work and I wonder what could have been. Maybe it's just age at this point, but I don't think I could have kept up with it for long. No, I was on the path to becoming a professor, and I don't regret leaving academia at all. The pay is terrible, the requirements to achieve your dream can crush the soul out of you if you're not careful, and the chances of achieving actual job security grow dimmer by the day. There are some things I miss about it, but I really can't regret choosing a good paying, if somewhat more boring, office job that gives me security and disposable income to pursue my own hobbies and travel, before the pandemic, of course. Honestly turned out great. I realized my band wasn't going to get a record deal after a few years, and then after playing for other people's bands for a while it started to become less fun. I got a "proper job", started working on my career, and used my new spare time to start playing rugby again. Now I've got a really good job in a sector I enjoy working in, married, kids, nice house, all that stuff, and I still play rugby on Saturdays, pre-pandemic, to keep things a little different as well as keeping in shape. I don't really see it as giving up on my dream. It was just recognizing that it wasn't going to happen. I'm very fond of that period of my life, and having spent quite a few years chasing that particular dream, I don't have any regrets or what ifs about being in a band. At age 15 I started playing guitar in a band. The dream was to become a rock star. At age 22, I was playing Gazaris on the Sunset Strip, a set of original tunes in club where so many famous people started. It was the heyday of the metal scene and that was happening in Los Angeles. By 1984 I realized that it was not just a question of being a great band or writing great songs. I had seen a lot of great bands in Los Angeles that had great songs go absolutely nowhere. Then really crappy bands, I won't mention names to avoid hurting anyone, that did have commercial success. So why was this? It turns out being a great band that writes great songs is just not enough. You also have to be incredibly lucky. More people win the lottery than become famous rock stars. It was time to get real. I was 22 and I wanted things. So I gave up my dreams and became an electrical apprentice. By the time I was 24, I was running jobs. At 27 I was accepted in the IBU as a journeyman electrician. After passing the journeyman block test, accepted in a lot of states. At age 31 I became a master electrician and general foreman in the IBU. I then became the superintendent of a large union shop. And finally at age 33 I started my own electrical contracting business. At age 41 I became 100% disabled and was forced to retire. That was almost 20 years ago. I still have my Bray-amp and my Les Paul in my bedroom, always plugged in, so I can pick it up anytime I want. So, I'd say everything turned out okay for me. It went extremely well. Initially trained wanting to be an actor. Got accepted into a company touring around Europe, but then decided it would set me down a path that would most likely not work out. Chose instead to take the more secure route, to study physics, which I also enjoyed. I had great ambitions to become a professor, but that dream quickly died partway through my PhD. Worst years of my life of workplace bullying, stress, and eventual depression. I have no regrets about leaving. After I passed the defense, went on to leave academia to get a job in data science within the financial/insurance sector. It is far from a fulfilling career, but is secure and pays well. It gives me the freedom to live my life comfortably and have recently been able to afford a house as a direct result of my career choice. I'm happy now. I sometimes wonder how my life would have turned out had I chosen a different path, but realistically I don't think things could have turned out much better than they have now. Maybe I'll try a new passion once I'm more financially secure. We will see. This will probably get lost in the comments, but a family member of mine got laid off years ago, so he decided to actually pursue his dream and go to law school. He finished and was practicing law, but his family was still flat broke, and he was barely getting by. Then the job that laid him off years ago called him up and asked him to come back, and now he's about 6 months away from retirement. I asked him if he regretted it, and he said absolutely not. He loved practicing law, but his job now allows him way more money, lots of benefits he wouldn't have had if he was practicing law, and a hefty retirement package. When he has time off, he and his family can actually enjoy themselves. Is it his ideal career? No. But it was worth it to adjust what he wanted to do when he wasn't working. Chased my dream, took decades, and did better than I thought I could. Stayed focused throughout. Thing is, I should have reevaluated long ago. Turns out I was chasing the wrong dream. I regret not recognizing that the dream can and should change. If you blindly chase one dream, the finish line isn't necessarily fulfilling. I loved drawing and cartooning all through high school. Wanted to go to college for it. On the advice of a counselor, I got in touch with someone in graphic design and actually got to talk on the phone. After a few questions about my classes, no art classes, and my portfolio, didn't have one, they paused and went, "Well, you haven't really done any of the things you'd need to do if you want to pursue this." Oops. First thing out of high school, I got on the path to do X-ray and wound up meeting my wife on the job. I'm working in court right now, while she's home with our baby. I still draw for fun. Wouldn't change a thing. 18 months ago I left my mediocre career as a stuntman for more secure work as a duty contractor. I'm now living life in Japan with a loaded bank account and my wife can focus on her writing. Although I miss performing stunts, I now enjoy my day-to-day life without worrying about finances or health insurance. It's strange. I thought I had given up pursuing my dream. I achieved the dream much later in life. I work for Solace Animation in Toronto. I create 3D environments in Unreal Engine and use those environments for creating backgrounds for 2D animation. I got that gig at age 31. I'm 36 now and have been very happy with this work because I spent my 20s doing really rough jobs. I was once a general labor worker who had to clean the very few toilets over 300 people had used. It's a nightmare. Removing mounds of rubble, broken glass and risking asbestos inhalation. It was actually great money. I thought that was what I'd be doing until my back broke, but I went back at the dream and actually got the job. What really happened was at age 30 I quit drinking. That made the difference. Years of alcohol abuse put me in horrible job positions I most definitely deserved. About 18 months ago I left my tertiary education in a creative field to take a job opportunity which I applied for, but never thought I would get. It was a paid traineeship with a guaranteed transition into 6-figure salary, which I will reach in March. My annual salary is about to be more than twice as much as I ever thought it would be for the rest of my life. But every day I go to work I fantasize about leaving and returning to my creative career. I'm still reckoning with how to balance my life and hopefully have the best of both worlds, but my attempts so far have been really challenging. Whether or not I'm capable of doing both has yet to be determined, since my secure job absorbs so much of my energy. Wish me luck. It turned out just the way it was meant to. After spending a few years pursuing my dream, the time it took away from my kid and the lifestyle/dynamic it put me in was not worth the career choice. I initially thought I was setting an example for my son, that you can do anything you set your mind to, and that you should follow your dreams. But ironically, my dreams changed while I was doing it. Working 60 hours a week plus my commute, I didn't have enough time to be a mom. So I quit chasing after it, started a closer to home, regular job, and met my husband a few months after. Now I'm a stay-at-home parent, and when my degree is finished and my youngest is in school I'll have the same schedule as my kids when I go back to work. So I'd care if I gave up on my dream, so much as it changed. I grew out of it, in a way. I'm glad I went for it though, because now I don't have any what ifs, and I'm not romanticizing it as something it isn't. It turned out just fine. I regret nothing. When I was an arrogant young man, convinced that I was smarter than everyone else, and that intelligence alone would translate to professional success, I dreamt of becoming a CEO and making oodles of money. After a few years in corporate America, though, I realized that 1. Being successful actually requires a lot more than just raw intelligence, and 2. Making lots of money in corporate America requires lots of shitty personal and ethical sacrifices. I quit my job, traveled the world, and ended up moving permanently to a foreign country. 5 stars, highly recommended. My dream was to become an architect and start my own company building unique beautiful homes for millionaires. I got a girl pregnant just before I was due to go to uni, so I dropped out and became a carpenter. Now I own a company building beautiful houses for millionaires without $200k plus of student debt. I was a piano performance major in college and I really wanted to be a musician. But I was broke. So I got my first job as a help desk technician. After a year I thought it would be more stable to go into computer science, and music classes were killing my dream anyways. So I thought it would be a great switch. Honestly, I think it was the best decision of my life. I realized passions change. I found art in writing code and I get paid well. If I had been a musician during this pandemic I would have been royally screwed. Dream chasing is for people who have rich parents. Normal people make dreams out of what they have. I wanted to become a professional diver. I do have the dive guide certification, but I realized that working a new passion field is very different than your passion. The saying, if you work in something you are passionate about you don't work a day in your life, does not apply to my case. I did not like the customer interaction. I love teaching scuba diving, but not the dealing with Karen part. I went back to uni. I'm now a chemist engineer, and I'm much happier. Less physically demanding. The only human I have to deal is my project manager that handle the Karens, and I bought a house this year that I would not be able to do if I stayed in the scuba diving career. That being said, I still volunteer when there's not a pandemic going on and scuba dive on the weekends. I'm so relieved I can enjoy my passion again. A blessing in disguise. I successfully passed all these aptitude tests and was preparing to travel to the interview in a few weeks' time to the south of England. I always wanted to be a pilot since I saw an Avro Vulcan in Gibraltar in the late 80s. All I had to do was choose an available date, but I had a gut feeling to hold off, and a few days later the company went bust. The company was Flybe. Since sticking with my software engineering career, I've had more time with the family and have saved the company a few $1,000s, which has secured my position for the foreseeable future. And since the pandemic started, I'm part of the workforce that has not been furloughed, and the company has been doing quite well and has plans to expand this year. Hardly regret. I was transitioning from an IT career to film, a dream I'd been planning for a long time. Wrote and directed a few shorts and a TV series. After doing music videos and TVCs, could almost see the path clearing to making my first proper film, but fell in love and walked away to have a family. I guess the ease with which I walked away just meant I probably was never gonna make it, but I wonder from time to time. I couldn't navigate the networking side well at the time. Juggling work was tricky to get in front of the right people at the right parties. I love my life and family now. I'm still working it in the corporate world, and it gets me down regularly, but it also motivates me to stick with the creative stuff, just to maintain my sanity. I finished my first novel manuscript last year, so that was a plus in an otherwise disgusting 2020. From the get-go after graduating university, I left behind any dream of traveling and living abroad and started a stable career. I was really good at it too. But a little over a year later I quit my stable career. 7 months into my job I started to be lifeless. I was living, but every day I would be driving to work in my brand new car thinking, if I drove this fast enough into the shoulder, can I have an instant death? I started overeating, overspending, and my body also just decided, hey, you should die, and I developed a whole bunch of problems, and I was in and out of the hospital a lot. So I quit. Started traveling and now live abroad. Have been for over 2 years now. I'm happier. I have time to find stability later. F27. Having a secure and comfortable life eventually was my dream. I had aspirations when I was young to go into music or writing, and I really did try for a career in those areas for a little while, but these are fields where deeply talented people, much more talented than me, work themselves to the bone for years with no guarantee of being able to support themselves steadily. Some people seem to be preternaturally able to do this through some combination of grit and work and luck and positive outlook, but I'm not one of them. I realized in my mid-20s that I wasn't going to ever be happy living with so much uncertainty, and I'm fortunate to have, eventually, found a desk job that seems boring on paper, but lets me solve interesting problems and work with cool smart people. The work is steady and pays more than I ever dreamed of making when I was young. And the thing is, I'm in my 40s, and I still write and make music whenever I want. My life gives me space for it now. During the pandemic I've learned how to play a new instrument, just for the hell of it. And when I make music or write now, it feels good, just the way it felt when I was young. My financial security isn't tied up in it. I can just love it for what it is, because it's beautiful and makes my brain feel good. Back when I was younger I used to be a damn good tennis player, played for the county, and used to do pretty well at nationals. Got offered a place at an academy in Spain twice and a few other performance school/academies along the way. Would have been a dream to go and play Wimbledon or something one day. Unfortunately I'm too sensible to go and pursue that properly, as the chances of getting super successful are immensely low, even if you dedicate your life to it. So I kept playing tennis competitively, but it took a backseat to my studies. I'm now a year out from finishing medical school and haven't looked back. Still playing the UK Premier Division for my uni though, so tennis is still a big part of my life. Wanted to become a psychologist, but didn't have the grades. to apply for grad programs or a PhD program. I also thought I couldn't make enough money in that field to suffice. Pursued a professional career instead. I make good money, but I find it so boring and not challenging 8 years in, and I decided to go back to school. I'm the type who likes to help people, and my current job I only help my company. I'm currently taking classes to boost my GPA and will apply to grad school this year. Here's to hoping I get in. I was studying to be a teacher. I finally realized after several years of aimless drifting after high school, what I really wanted to do was teach. I moved in with my girlfriend after her parents kicked her out, and we weren't doing well financially. I had a shitty part-time job, and she was underpaid in her full-time role. We could barely pay the bills, let alone do anything fun. After several months being unable to enjoy even simple luxuries, with her having an emotional breakdown and me unable to focus on my studies, resulting in me likely having to repeat some classes, I made the decision that I had to start bringing money in. I hit the job market and took the first full-time office job that would have me, working as a filing clerk at a finance company, making half what I would have as a teacher, but without having to wait 2 years until graduating. The emotional benefit of being able to just enjoy ourselves without having to struggle from paycheck to paycheck was well worth giving up the dream. That was about 15 years ago now, and I've worked my way up to middle management at an insurance company. My skills are marketable and the industry is generally stable. My now wife and I are both doing well for ourselves. Looking back, I honestly don't know if I would have been a good teacher, and I have no regrets about my decision to throw it in. It turned out terrible. Years of grinding away at my poorly paid dream career and seeing mediocre peers get work and funding really felt like a kick in the nuts. One day I couldn't take being broke anymore. I was eating from the out-of-date sections of supermarkets for about 6 months at that point. I quit it all, and since my career up to that point most employers saw as useless, all I got was a low-level temp job 10 years later is slightly higher level and not temp. Pay as shit, and the frustration at not having an outlet for my creativity causes me quite a bit of mental anguish. I'd rather be poor and doing a job I love than going through this awful shit every day. But it's too late now, so that's that. I'll work crap jobs I hate till the day I die. It turned out great. At some point the advice of "you only live once" starts having another meaning. You only live once, so if you want to spend a good part of your life chasing fame, success, glory, and whatnot, then you better be sure that it is what you want to do. You will give up a lot of peace and tranquility, relationships, and time in exchange for something that might not happen. Or maybe it will, but at the end of the day you are no better than anyone else. You will just be a guy who happens to have a successful business, or a guy who happens to be really good at something. In the end, your friends and family will remember you as the person they saw under the mask. A person who is truly successful at everything he does is very, very rare. Most likely your chase will end up costing you a marriage, a good relationship with your kids, your health, etc. You have to choose. This will definitely get buried. I gave up most of my dreams because I realized all my major goals weren't actually mine to begin with. Go to a university and even junior college, that's something schools really push towards. I didn't want to go for myself. Getting a degree in psychology or anthropology, more of a pipe dream that made my family happy for me. I realized somewhere along the way that no one needs any greater ambition than marrying the woman of your dreams, which I'll propose very soon, hanging out with friends and family, and raising a good family. It won't be grand. I won't make heaps of money and have an impressive education and wild college stories, but I'll have my loved ones with me. We'll live a comfortable life. In the words of a South African exchange student I met while working at a country club, a man only needs 2 things in life: a good drink and a good woman by his side. I had to give up my dream of being a veterinarian because I couldn't afford the college tuition. So I went home and became a farmer like my grandfathers and father. It went well until I got married, and my ex-wife decided after 7 years of marriage that she didn't want to be a farmer's wife, and she filed for divorce. That cost me about $500,000 and my farm back in the mid 1980s. So it was a chunk of change. So I went back to school to learn to be a machinist / toolmaker, and later a medic. I met a beautiful woman and married her. We hadn't raised 4 wonderful and highly successful daughters together. And we now enjoy 4 grandsons. This New Year's Eve, we celebrated 35 years together. Growing old with someone is the best thing in the world. And now I sit here in our home, drinking my Sunday morning tea, and look out the window across the snow, and through the trees over a now frozen lake. I realize this was the dream I was looking for all my life.